Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us at our Low Carbon Construction Tech Showcase. For those who don't know me, my name is Michelle Wilk, and I'm an investment manager here at Pi Labs. As a venture capital firm, we invest in the innovators that are transforming our relationship with the built world. And since we started investing back in 2014, 10 years ago, we've made over 80 investments in over 15 different countries. And we're backing early stage companies that are going global. Together with our founders, we're on a mission to reshape the built world, and that's socially, technologically, and especially relevant today, environmentally. And with the real estate sector contributing 40% of global greenhouse emissions, change is absolutely vital. And that's why we've centered today's showcase around low carbon construction tech. And it's why I'm so excited to introduce you to a snapshot of our companies in our portfolio tackling some of the biggest sustainability challenges in the space and making real impact through their deployment. So today, we have 4 companies within our portfolio who will present to you. We'll be opening it up for Q&A after each pitch, so please feel free to type any questions in the chat bar as we go along, and we'll be fielding them at the end. So first up, we have Tangible, who is helping developers measure, report, and reduce carbon emissions within their construction projects portfolio-wide. And I'm going to hand over to Nicole, the co-founder and COO, to tell you more. Over to you, Nicole.
Thanks so much, Michelle. I appreciate it. Lovely to see you all this morning. I appreciate you tuning in. Let me know if you can see this okay. All good? Perfect. Okay. Well, I know that we have a lot to cover today, so let's jump right into it. Good morning. My name is Nicole Granith. I am co-founder and COO of Tangible Materials, and we are a software solution to measure, report, and reduce embodied carbon emissions across assets portfolio-wide. My co-founder, Annalie, and I started the company 2.5 years ago. We've been out in the market commercial for the last year, and we are incredibly proud to be working with some of the world's largest developers and general contractors. So first off, what exactly is embodied carbon? Embodied carbon is the emissions that are associated with the production, transportation, installation, and continued use of building materials. Traditionally, a lot of focus has been given to the operational carbon, the carbon to operate buildings, but increasingly the attention is turning to the embodied carbon because folks are realizing that this is a massive upfront source of emissions. And this is being recognized across not just the nonprofits and the zero carbon standards of the world, but also is now being written into building codes across North America, where I reside. And this is something that we're seeing across the municipal, state or provincial, as well as federal level. And it's what we've been seeing echoed in both the UK, across the continent in Europe, and is a trend that we are expecting to continue. The difficult part about this, though, is that the developers who are actually required to report on this information are struggling to find a scalable solution to aggregating the information, finding the insights that can help them take action at scale, and then find a way to repeat that across a set of funds, across a set of assets, across a set of geographies, and then ultimately to understand that portfolio wide. So that's where I most recently was living over in China, running sustainability for a global flooring manufacturer and working deeply with our supply chain to understand where the sources of these emissions were coming from. And my co-founder was working in Stockholm and London with the Better Buildings Partnership, working to help the folks, the consortium members, to understand how to tackle these types of emissions. And we were realizing that it just was not going to be possible without a software-enabled solution to allow us to first measure the embodied carbon at the project level, and then ultimately allow that to roll up to the portfolio level. Then to understand where exactly we could reduce. And then lastly, to repeat this. I will take this back here. This is really how we are now enabling streamlined data collection and results, because it is as easy as dropping and uploading your Revit files and PDFs for us to kickstart the process and deliver those embodied carbon results. It is then as simple as the next step of getting an understanding of where the largest opportunities for reduction are. And then it is ultimately possible to drive these reduction strategies at scale, getting an understanding of how fund to fund or different geographies stack up to one another. So lastly, for anyone in the audience who is keen to understand compliance risks around embodied carbon, has global exposure, we are fully launched in North America with projects across Canada and the US, and are expecting to launch in European markets in the coming future. And then for anyone who's interested in not just having a report that checks the box, but actually getting value from the data that is ultimately yours and has a whole host of unmined insights sitting in it. With that, I will stop sharing and open up for any questions.
Thank you, Nicole, for a really great presentation. We've got a question through from the audience asking you where you find your recommendations and how you validate them.
Yeah, that is a fantastic question. Happy to dive into it. It's really at this time just limited to concrete is what we're beta testing it on. And it's entirely focused on what the impact of increasing the supplementary cementitious materials in that concrete would be. So it's taking it from the environmental product declarations of the concrete that is currently being used, and then suggesting with that exact same strength and set of performance criteria, what would be possible with an additional percentage of non-Portland cement.
Great. And a second question that says, thank you for the presentation. This looks really interesting. Does it link to the cost plan at all?
Yeah, this is something that please come talk to me. We are working with customers right now to integrate with information that they currently have on the estimations and cost front, because that is the holy grail, showing carbon and cost in one place.
Great. And David asks, does the manufacture of cement or the extraction of sand and aggregates have the highest carbon footprint?
Oh, that is a great question. I actually happen to know someone who will be presenting later who can maybe provide some insight into that. But yes, perfect, Lace is coming in. The answer is that it depends very much based off of the practices and the geography, and then also the transport of from the source to the site itself matters. So unfortunately, David, I wish there was a straightforward answer, but Lysa will likely also be able to chime in from what she's seen on the manufacturer side.
Great. And time for one last question. How are you integrating verification of the asset level embodied carbon assessment?
Yes, great question. This is something also happy to dive into. We are using third-party verified ISO 14044 environmental product declarations in line with the best practice standards, and have a number of other verification pieces that I'd be happy to share after.
Great. And for those questions we haven't had time to answer, we will be giving the founder details after, so feel free to connect on those questions direct. Next up, we have Ulrich, who have built a logistics workspace powering suppliers in construction, and in doing so, helping them take control of their emissions. So I'm going to hand over to Axel, the co-founder and CPO, to tell you more.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Axel. I'm a chief product officer and founder of Alric. I have a background in fintech and I've been doing Alric since we founded Alric for 2 years, a bit more than 2 years ago. What do? We let distributors in the construction industry to take full control of their logistics, data, emissions, and customer communications. How do we do it? Through one unified platform. We let these distributors in the construction industry to optimize their fleets with AI, to book shipments using our third-party carrier marketplace, and unify all of this data in one data platform so that everyone can collaborate through these distributors to get access to this data and optimize their operations. This is mainly used by logistics and sales teams at these building material stores. So a classic merchant or distributor or supplier of building materials or rental tools is our core ICP sort of organization of who are our customers. It's used by logistics and sales teams centrally, by them locally when they book shipments and ship their material to construction sites, and then for managers, C-level, and other budget and P&L holders who want to get access to their data for their business intelligence tools so that they can basically lower their logistics costs. So in a nutshell, we're a construction software company founded in Sweden. We launched last year. We let distributors gain full control of logistics costs and emissions in one unified platform. We enable more efficient planning at construction sites, and that in turn gets a productivity boost and basically happier end customer, the construction companies, because they know when their materials and tools will arrive to the construction sites. We think that the main problem that we are solving is basically that because of the lack of coordination at the construction sites, there are less productivity than possible. There are too high logistics costs and therefore too high construction costs, and that this mess can be solved through software. That's what we want to solve. So far, we have over 100 customers. We have managed to lower our customers' logistics costs by 30%. And we shipped more than 20,000 shipments of construction materials to construction sites every month through our platform. We've seen that through our sort of optimization software, we can lower emissions by 20% just because of the visibility and the sort of smartness of what material and tools should I send on my truck in what order. We raised 4 million euros by Pi Labs and also by a German fund called Global Funds Capital. I think stepping back to the problem of why we are doing this may seem kind of niche, but I wanted to stop a bit on the core foundational insight of why we started Alric. We realized that what some people call lead times, but basically all time and cost at the construction site when you are not producing is highly correlated to transports. So first off, we were like, okay, let's help construction sites to plan better. But we realized that the suppliers and the distributors and the merchants and the building material stores, they are the one providing the transports to the construction sites. And therefore, if we can help them to coordinate better, then we can help the construction sites to be more productive. So we sell to distributors, but we truly believe that the value, not all, but a lot of the value really can be withdrawn from the actual sites, and we can help them to become more productive. The problem is the chaos, and the solution is simple and wow. We basically need to take this chaos of when is my stuff arriving and solve that through software that is very simple to use so that everyone can use it, that looks nice and basically is not ugly. Incumbent, usually construction software is ugly. Can we help and gamify that with beautiful ease of use software and leverage that with AI? I think we have a lot to win. This is what it looks like. You have a supplier providing, let's say, drywalling. You have a distributor or a merchant. And then you have a lot of different small stores trying to coordinate this and send this to construction sites. At a classic medium to large construction site, there are usually 15 small deliveries each day that could easily fit on 1 or 2 trucks, not 15. We think that's a huge opportunity. Now, let me show you what simple and wow looks like. I thought I'd start with really sharing something that we haven't shared before outside of our beta customers. This is Alrik. What you see here is a Kanban approach to all your deliveries. So it gets from your ERP or from your VMS or other order management system, and everything is integrated into Alrik automatically. And you basically have a salesperson or a logistics person at each distributor store, basically saying to your drivers, okay, this is what we're going to do. This is, in some cases, fully hired people only doing this, or in some cases, people not doing this at all and hate doing it, but it needs to be done. So they just hand out papers to the drivers each morning. So what we built is a co-pilot that basically does this for you automatically. So you add all your fleet capacity in terms of, and the constraints that you know, and then we build the tours for you. Did you see that? I was worried that didn't switch the sort of screen that I'm sharing. Did you see me doing that operation for you?
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Awesome. So basically, take all the deliveries, take them into all the different drivers and stores and metrics and constraints that you have. Just take them all, and then I can sort of make that something that's not hard data, but rather I want that customer to take it first, change the order of those orders, and then we plan all of those tours and complete complexity of that huge building and heavy building due to materials for you automatically. Another thing of showing you why that is important is because of real-time data. So I thought I'd just quickly show you what this means. Here I have an order that you can see. It's arriving from my ERP. I need to do it with Express. I need to take it from one place to another. I need to do it before 12. So I see here that I have a driver that is now out. He has an ETA of 10:19. I'm updating it, and I can now see that I can drag and drop that order and send that information to both my driver, to the construction company, to my different stores, and basically all relevant stakeholders getting access to that data at the same time. In order of time, I think I'll just quickly move on. Where are we now? We are at the state of we are only focusing on adding value to our customers, and this gets us apparently a lot of traction. We have 8 of the biggest suppliers in Europe as customers. We have basically all market leaders in the Nordics as customers. Over 100 different stores and organizations are using us. We have proved case studies of 22% improved efficiency for fleets. This is huge when you consider that one truck costs 15,000 euros a month to maintain. And we have signed our first enterprise deal, now our third enterprise deal, and are launching in the UK and the Nordics at the same time for now. That's it for me. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you, Axel, for your presentation. We have a question that's come through already from an attendee asking, as a property developer, can we use your solution or are we not the target?
Great question. Yes, but everyone that's been asking us that wants the data because they need to report the climate and the cost data of their logistics to get everything in one place. So we are actually working with Skanska on doing that. But being a startup, being in Series A, we are like very focus driven in what we do. So we are working with them, happy to talk more about it, but it's something that we will work more and more with over time.
Great.
But happy to talk about it.
Sure. And then Axel, as we wait for more questions to come through, it'd be great to also understand a lot of the audience will be dialing in from all over the world. What are your plans for expansion?
We are focusing on the Nordics and the UK now because that's where we have traction. That's where we've been focusing to get the traction. But it's a global solution, and we have no technical restraints to launch this wherever or whenever.
Great. We're at time, so we're going to move on to Liza from Pathways. But as a reminder for everyone, if you're struggling to see the screen, please just click on the top right and you'll be able to see Liza Sanderman's screen, and that will enable you to see the slides as we go along. Next up is Pathways, whose AI-powered platform automizes the creation of real-time environmental product declarations for material manufacturers. And I'm going to hand over to Liza, the co-founder and CEO, to tell you more.
Yeah, such a pleasure to meet you all. So we've heard about the perspective from real estate developers, and then we've heard about the perspective from transport. I think of buildings like Lego. If you want to decarbonize real estate, you've got to start with every single material. So if you look around in the room you're sitting in right now, your window, the steel beam, the paint on the wall, anyone who makes any of those materials, that's our potential customer. We think of ourselves as building out that data layer for sustainable manufacturing and construction. And why is that the case? Because 20% of global emissions, and only increasing, are going to come from the actual material choices, especially as we electrify the grid, and the shift towards embodied carbon is becoming more and more important. We're also building a ton. I won't surprise any of the participants here on the list, although our customer in the US love this fact with some wariness, which is that we're building a new New York City every single month, which means that the choice of building materials and individual material and product manufacturers' ability to decarbonize and communicate sustainability is more important than ever. Our first customer base has been out of the US, but we're operating in both the US and North America and Europe. And similar to Axel, our technology is geographic agnostic. But this is really showing the growth we've seen in requirements of product level EPD requirements. And what are these EPDs? I think of them as environmental nutrition facts, but instead of calories and carbohydrates, we are looking at chemicals and carbon. But they are really hard to make, because if you are the producer of reinforced concrete or steel beam, mass timber or tape, you have to understand every single input material that goes into your production. And you have to understand how was it transported to your own manufacturing site and your own manufacturing site production, waste, water, fuel, energy sources. And that's really where we come in. So we work with our customers all the way from data collection to documentation. And the way we do that is by reducing that manual data collection, integrating directly into the data stack of manufacturing, and then creating that real-time visibility and ultimately verified LCAs, EPDs, and sales assets. Let me get into the back end first, and then we'll jump and see what it actually looks like for our customers. We found that 95% of the data needed to communicate the environmental product declarations already live in customer systems. It's just not organized in the way you would like it to be. So you might not be tracking your water usage down at product level, but someone sure is paying for the water. And we found that between 3 and 5 different existing data systems, we are able to build out those API links, and then we're using AI and large language models to sort the structure of the data on our end, ultimately being able to document the individual product. We launched a year and a half ago and are now moving from pilots into scale. So this was one of our first customers on our plant, a $3 billion hard pressed wood manufacturer. They make around 1 million utility poles across 50 different plants. And what we were able to do is move from 1 plant to 7 plants. That's 6 additional plants, only taking 3 weeks to onboard. Really combining sustainability and sales, giving sales teams in manufacturing the documents they need to be able to sell more, and ultimately serving the need of the full supply chain. Obviously not doing this by myself. Got my wonderful co-founder who has a background in technology, started in Uber, really focused on how to automate products and make them look much easier and usable. And I myself had my material point of no return when working with Tata Steel out in India. When you stand in something like Jamshedpur and all you can see is steel, you get a real appreciation for the gravity of the challenge, but also how incredibly difficult it is for sustainability teams all across manufacturers who are being turned into data analysts. If you yourself are manufacturing a product or a process or raw material, or you have people in your supply chain who are struggling to provide LCAs and EPDs, I'd love to chat with them. I'll skip over this one. That's all about fundraising, but obviously very proud to be in the Pi Labs portfolio. And then I love to end on this picture of Madonna, reminding us we live in a material world, which we are trying to decarbonize material, plant, and product one by one.
Great. Thank you, Liza, for a brilliant presentation. We have a question from the audience asking who your clients are.
Yeah, we have a range of different customers, both in terms of size and material. Ultimately, our customers are people who make something at a plant or material. So it's anyone who makes a material or product. So I mentioned kind of a publicly listed $3 billion hard pressed wood manufacturer, and then it ranges down to people in steel, in cement, in more complex intersections like curtain walls, combining glass and wood.
Great. We've got another question from the audience asking whether substituting sustainable structural timber for steel will reduce the construction carbon footprint.
It really depends on the actual steel you have access to. If you're based in Europe, where most is coming out of a BOF, so blast furnace, or most in US in electric arc furnace and the recycle share, as well as where your timber production is coming from, sustainable forestry. Unfortunately, it is not as easy to say there is always one material that's better than another, although seeing a lot of advancements in timber that are incredibly promising and really delivering well on carbon promises.
We've also got a question asking whether developers can specify that supply chain uses where EPDs are missing.
Yes, absolutely. We're finding that developers basically, pushing us down to their suppliers. Today, your suppliers only have one option. It's going to really expensive consultants, easily costing 30K to just get a PDF document, right? And we're really breaking that down, both in terms of time and cost. And I'll loop that in with another question I saw come in here on digital product passports. We are seeing environmental product declarations be the most widely specified regulatory requirements across North America and Europe. There are incredibly high overlap to the digital product passports, and we are able to use the data we generate for our customers to also provide variations of digital product passports. It just depends on what you're looking for.
We've got another question asking whether you've had any success with M&E yet, as one of the ASHPs took over 2 years to produce an EPD for a single model.
Yeah, yes, we are right now just starting to work with an M&E. I mean, the reality is the more complex products you have, the more important it becomes not to do this manually. One of the reasons why it takes 2 years is because you'll have to like scroll through all of your inputs, and the more complex the product you have, whether you're looking at HVAC or complex electric equipment, that becomes proportionally higher. We haven't yet published an EPD for an M&E, but we are looking at being able to do that in months rather than in years. But unfortunately, it's incredibly common that it takes kind of 1-2 years.
Great. And time for one last question, which is that 30 years ago, pulverized fuel ash was used to reduce the percentage of cement in concrete mix. Now with fewer coal-fired power stations, what's the alternative?
Yeah, this is kind of when you think about how do supply chains interact, right? Blast furnace steel, which is incredibly high emission steel, had a byproduct which is fly ash, and that was one of the most commonly used alternative cementitious materials in lower concrete production. We are seeing an incredible innovation in supplementary cementitious materials. I have a whole list on my side. I think the reality is going to be that it's much more kind of localized variations of alternatives. And David, happy to send you a list of the ones we're tracking, but we're talking kind of 200 plus, as it's one of the most prominent and easiest ways of decarbonizing concrete production without changing the actual production structure. That's also, you know, what Nicole was mentioning in terms of modeling SCMs in that concrete decarbonization at the real estate developer level.
Brilliant. That's all we've got time for, Liza. We're going to move on to our final presentation for today, which is from Trunk, who are helping offsite projects get installed on time and really accelerating the delivery of sustainable buildings in doing so. So here we go. So getting offsite projects installed on time, and I'm going to hand over to Tom, the co-founder, to tell you more.
Thank you very much, and good morning, everyone. I've been trying to figure out idly what Trunk's equivalent of Madonna in a material world is. Let's see how we go. Trunk is ultimately here to help accelerate our transition into low carbon and highly sustainable buildings, where parts of buildings are pre-manufactured on assembly lines and then delivered to construction sites for final assembly. Now, before I get into Trunk, I just want to give us a kind of bit of a bird's eye view. I'm going to take us straight down to the middle of England, to a factory I was in just a couple of days ago, which is Vistry, so one of the biggest house builders here in the UK, just announcing that they're beginning to move all of their construction that's happening on the sites right now into factories. And this has just come in at the bottom here from Barratt's Homes, that they are beginning to pre-manufacture more of their houses now as they move towards their net zero goals for the entire business. So collectively, that's about 50,000 houses every year. They're going to be pre-manufactured with offsite construction. A project that Trunk is actually deployed on for the Ministry of Defence, a big 1.2 billion program to modernize all of the army barracks. These are bomb-proof modules that are pre-manufactured in factories, taken to the construction sites to assemble much quicker. And then lastly, another project that Trunk is deployed on with Ibstock. So this is a FTSE 250 listed manufacturer for the XL Phase 2 in London, where they're looking to accelerate the time to put up the building through pre-manufactured construction. Now, just kind of big bird's eye view, when we see or we hear people talk about offsite manufacturing, lots of people think of kind of caravan-sized building modules, very similar to this. But actually, if we step back, we're actually looking at about 10 different categories of prefabrication that happens in factories and then lands on the construction sites. Now, the key topic of today's talk is around reducing embodied carbon. And if we look here at the bottom left, we've got the University of Cambridge study that came out last year that's showing pre-manufacturing techniques is showing to reduce embodied carbon about 46% when compared to traditional on-site delivery techniques. So all of this is great. And I guess you're looking at here and going, well, what's the problem? And if we switch our attention to the manufacturers, one of the most crucial stakeholders in the delivery of off-site construction, they are up against three key challenges, which ultimately are a profit and loss problem for these companies. Problem number one, you've got fixed overheads. Unlike traditional construction contractors that can step up and stop down their subcontractors, you have a workforce to employ, you have a big factory, you maybe invested lots in robotics. And so you're kind of looking at Warren Buffett. Second challenge that they're up against is quality. If you imagine, if you produce something in a factory and you get the specification wrong, you send that building module, you send that wall panel, you send that prefab bathroom to the construction site, and then there are all sorts of expensive reworks that have got to go on to get that thing right and installed. And that can really knacker the companies that are prefabbing stuff for the construction sites. Now, we heard a fair bit in Axel's piece around the coordination of material suppliers and the construction sites themselves. And this is another manufacturing companies we work with are up against, which is how do we fundamentally coordinate what we're doing in the factory to make sure that we deliver right time to the construction projects that we're supplying to. So, without these problems resolved, what's going to happen is we're going to have too much fragility within the offsite manufacturing supply chain. And so what we have done at Trunk is we have developed a system which brings both the production and the site assembly into one system to reduce the costs for the manufacturers and ultimately make them deliver more profitable projects each year. Let's do a little double click on what this looks like to show you what's happening. First thing is, if you imagine offsite manufacturing, you've got lots of product variations. Some of our manufacturers have over 50,000 different types of wall products that they produce. And so traditional ERP systems or traditional manufacturing systems fall over here. You're going to need to hire armies of people to manage this. So what Trunk does is it automatically scans all of your drawings, populates all of the products that you need to manufacture, even suggests quality checks and operations that you might need to run through to produce them out in the manufacturing floors, and prepares them for manufacture. Next key thing that's happening, if you imagine there's this production schedule which behaves a little bit like Google Maps. It's going to help get you from one side of town to the other more faster, which is very similar to the way the production schedule system works within Trunks. Tell us what products you want to produce, what dates they need to hit, and then it will generate an efficient production plan for the manufacturers to work to, which saves them huge amounts of money. Now, if you imagine staying with the analogies on the construction site, if you're delivering an offsite manufactured product, you've got a lot of things that are coming out of a factory that you need to coordinate around for the site works. So this gives you a kind of good way to see around the corner, to plan, to see what dates the things are going to land, so that your construction schedule can align to the factory schedule, making sure heavy equipment is there at the right time, labor is there at the right time, material is there at the right time, so that you can reduce that overall cost of construction. And so we talked a lot there about what's happening in terms of the software, but coming back to those key challenges we talked about a minute ago, this is about reducing the cost of manufacture, improving the quality of the things that are coming out of the factory, and then ultimately removing the delivery risk and making sure that the project schedule is speaking with the manufacturing schedule, and we're not running into big problems there. So real world, what's this enabling? Trunk is currently deployed on one of the biggest offsite manufacturing programs we have here in Europe. It's for the Department of Defense Infrastructure Organization. Without Trunk, they're actually running about 32% slower. If you see here, you've got cycle times reduced by about 32%. So a project that started in January, which was expecting to come in back end of December, is now going to be coming in September with Trunk deployed. So this is a massive ROI in terms of schedule efficiency and quality for the delivery of this huge project to upgrade all of the army barracks across the UK. Second project here, this is Ipstock, so big FTSE 250 listed manufacturer. And within 6 weeks, Trunk has already delivered 52% reduction in rework. This is time spent reworking or rebuilding quality defects within manufacture. So within 6 weeks, they've already demonstrated $250,000 worth of savings. And this is linked to big construction projects such as the Financial Times headquarters in London, which is going up with modern methods of construction, the New Excel in London, and modern hotels across the UK. Final one here, just look at in terms of case studies and what Trunk is enabling in the real world. The Department of Education have ring-fenced billions to go into what we call modern methods of construction, another term for describing off-site manufacturing. And this project here has achieved net zero with its documentation that came from Trunk, the automated quality documentation and specifications that were made available because of Trunk's technology. Now, just in terms of the ecosystem, Trunk exists with lots of other systems that the manufacturers use and that the construction contractors use on the sites. And this is to say that Trunk integrates with robotic systems, integrates with communication tools, and it also integrates all of the design systems and planning systems you'd expect to see in any of these manufacturers. So, stepping back, big picture, Trunk is deployed with small SME manufacturers and enabling outcomes all the way through to FTSE 250 listed manufacturers. And so for the manufacturers themselves, this is giving them ways to be much more efficient, deliver more profitable projects, and make sure the quality of what they produce is where it needs to be. And for the construction contractors on the site, this is dead simple for them. This is about how do we hit program, how do we hit quality, and how do we make sure we can reduce our construction costs when we're using and utilizing offsite manufacturing techniques to reduce the carbon and get our projects delivered much faster. I'm going to flip over to questions, and hopefully that is on time.
Perfectly on time. Thank you, Tom. We've already had some questions come through. So the first one is asking whether you are already working with French developers.
Not working with French developers, but incidentally, at the start of this week, I had a conversation with a French manufacturer, fairly significant one as well. But happy to pick up after the session for a discussion around why developers are choosing to deploy Trunk right now. Great.
And then the second question is around whether your software can interact and integrate with BIM and Revit, as the attendee is from IM Properties is wanting to develop digital twins using level 2 and 3 BIM.
Yeah, exactly that. So, we always say, people like to say offsite manufacturing. Really, offsite manufacturing is a design process. So Trunk integrates very deeply with Revit. It integrates very deeply with Inventor, SolidWorks, those systems, because there's so much value that's in these systems, be it 2D models, 3D models, that when you release that information into manufacture and you release that into construction, this is where huge payoffs in productivity kick up.
And another question around whether Trunk can be used to aggregate manufacturing data from across different manufacturers to help building owners and developers measure circularity.
Yeah, do you know what? It's something that we do get asked a fair bit, and it's something that we've been working on very quietly in the background. A massive part of that is standardizing all of the data that are coming from the manufacturers. Doesn't matter if they're in Europe, US, UK, standardizing all those bits so we can generate global insights on those things. It's a bit of homework for us at the minute. It's not a part of our key focus, but we are laying the right groundwork so that as we get into next year, we can begin to switch on these insights for developers, contractors more broadly.
Great. We've got a few minutes for more questions if anyone wants to add any more. But in the meantime, Tom, I'm curious, there was no mention of AI in your presentation. It's obviously such a hot topic right now. Maybe you could tell us a little bit more about whether AI is used within the business.
Yeah, it's a good point. If you think about our manufacturers, they are sometimes, when we put Trunk in front of them, shocked, and they think it's magic. How did it forecast those dates? How did it do those things? Because some of them are running on whiteboards, some of them are running on spreadsheets. And so we are in many ways adding value through AI without making too much of noise about it. We're putting it in front of users and adding what we call discrete value in front of users. And so, yes, we do use AI. We use it to extract information from design, from geometric, spatial plans, and adding that stuff into Trunk to reduce overhead and help people deliver more with the workforce that they have.
Brilliant. And maybe one more question. Is Trunk limited to specific types of construction assemblies, such as modules or wall panels? Maybe you could tell us a bit more about the use cases.
Yeah, it's a good question. We get asked this a fair bit. Is it just for specific types or can it work across? It works right the way across the different construction assemblies. So it could be bathroom pods, can be prefabbed MEP systems, prefab roof systems, whatever the types of construction prefabrication. Trunks technology is a fit to deploy there and create outcomes quickly for our customers.
Great. Thank you, Tom. That's all we've got time for today, but I just wanted to thank everyone for attending our portfolio showcase. We will be following up with information on each company after, so do look out for that, and we'd be happy to facilitate any introductions to any of the brilliant founders that have presented today. And as always, the PyLab store is open, so feel free to get in touch with the team with any questions. Thank you, everyone, and have a brilliant day.